12th and Main. That was the intersection where AJ's convenience store sat. Locals, of course, referred to it as AJ's. Roger and I walked around the grounds, and he showed me right there. That's where the victim dropped after he was shot. I bent over, peering through the lower half of my bifocals, and squinted at a frisbee-sized, amoeba-shaped brown spot on the pavement, only about 8 feet from the edge of the building. Scattered around were several other smaller auburn stains, all of them lingering blood marks from the deceased man's body. Real quickly, a whispering cold shiver sprinted along my spine. Can you imagine standing there knowing that a man had just been killed a few days earlier? Walking about 40 feet away from the store, I turned around and pretended I was Raymond. I called out to Roger. "What time did the event occur?" 8:32 p.m., Roger answered. So about 8:30 on a late May evening. It would have been dark, but not so late in the night that cars were absent, but traffic would surely have been light. Imagining myself to be a 15-year-old youth of a minority race, I dug my right hand inside my belt buckle as if I were rolling my fingers about the base of a .38 caliber handgun, fiddling with the safety switch. I sauntered indifferently toward the store as my heart fluttered a bit. I envisioned a medium-sized, middle-aged man walking toward the storefront. He had no idea his life was a moment away from its endpoint. No idea whatsoever. How sad. A hefty woman finished gassing up her car and fell into the driver's seat, forcing the vehicle to groan and roll like an ocean wave. I didn't need to worry about her. She'd be gone in a minute. The only view I could see of a clerk inside the store was of his back. Inside the persona of Raymond Davis, I heard myself call out, "Hey, mister, you got some spare cash?" The man turned in my direction, his countenance dispassionate. "No," he said perfunctorily, as suggesting he'd previously turned away young hoodlums like me before. Pulling the heavy pistol from my waistband, I groped it awkwardly. I steadied my grip. For a moment, make-believe and reality dissolved into one. Holding the gun sideways the way TV gangsters do, I could hear myself saying, "I said I want some money." The man turned again and looked me squarely in the eye. His lip faintly quivered as he realized I meant business. "Son, put it down," the man pleaded. Anxiously looking about, he hurriedly spun about and walked rapidly, frantically hoping to turn the corner of the building. Past the proverbial point of no return, I, Raymond Davis, followed, pacing faster than the man did. I thought nothing of it. Absolutely nothing was on my mind. The sky quickly darkened. The night sounds were no more than white noise, and my brain was in neutral. The .38 discharged. My ears rang. The man before me dropped. Instantly, I knew he was dead. I had no cares. Walking toward him, I looked downward to see blood leaking from his ear and then his mouth. His eyes were still open, but they were blind. There was a wound in the man's back, but not a lot of blood came from it. The man's left back trouser pocket was undone. Reaching down, I pulled it out and rifled through it. It contained 4 $1 bills and a bunch of trash. $4. That was $4 more than I possessed at the beginning of the day. Dropping the heavy gun back into my waistband, I retraced my steps and looked ahead at the apartment complex that was my new home of sorts. I think to myself, if I run, I'm announcing my guilt. Besides, no one saw me. Keep walking, Raymond, keep walking. The darkness of the night felt fine. In fact, it felt high quality. The evening was black. It matched my mood. I hate people and they hate me. I don't really give a crap about what happens next. I really don't. In a moment, I awaken, and I'm no longer Raymond Davis. I'm Lee Carter. I'll tell you what, sometimes reality is ugly. To point out the obvious, Neither you nor I can claim all there is to know about another person. None of us can physically demonstrate or verify our neighbor's reality. Making assumptions is a dangerous game. Do that, and before you know it, hypotheses turn into beliefs, then to dogmatic opinions, and then understanding fails. Paradoxically, if I fail to put myself in a teenage killer's shoes, I'll never know him. When we dare to enter another person's soul, no matter how sinister or how ugly or morbid or deathly it is, we release ourselves from the burden of bias. Freedom from prejudice is a great aid when we must decide what to do next, how to keep from recycling problems, how to apply solutions, how to learn, how to forgive, how to grow. My history is but one, as is yours, as is Raymond Davis's. When each of us peeps at life from our unique vantage point, we interpret what we see. I'm foolhardy if I suppose my reality is superior to your reality. When we hear of another person's encounters, we sometimes discount those aspects that differ greatly from our own. For example, if another person shoots and kills someone, we risk interpreting their life experiences based on our own understanding. Making sense of personal experiences is hard work. It requires that we step outside ourselves to imagine what life must be like beyond what we have seen or heard or touched or noticed. We're mistaken when we assume that truth only speaks to a select few individuals, psychologists, judges, newscasters, coffee shop intellectuals, or jury members. Within a few days, I sat once again with Raymond Davis at Visitation 5 inside juvenile detention. Apparently convinced that my client posed little physical danger to me, Miss Ledford, the juvenile jailer, no longer sat outside the door of our locked cubicle. Instead, she busied herself with other things, but she looked in on us with regularity to assure that all was well. I told Raymond, I went to AJ's the other night with an investigator. We walked through the crime scene. Raymond nodded, but to be honest, he didn't seem particularly concerned. What was it like? He asked. It's hard to say, Raymond. It was weird for me, to tell you the truth. It was tough to describe. I suppose you know what I mean. He nodded. I told him, you're not from AJ's, are you? AJ's is where people from your daddy's apartment hang out. Yeah, I figured that out. Had you noticed that a lot of people come and go from there? Not really. I bought beer there a couple of times. How'd you manage that? The dude that works there doesn't card you. My girlfriend told me. Please, Raymond, stop it, I wanted to say. Raymond hadn't been in town long enough to have a bona fide girlfriend. Things like that take time. Tell me, Raymond, when you walked toward the store that night, did you plan to do something bad? Maybe. I don't know, maybe. What was the reason for carrying a gun? I asked. I like having one, in case I need it. For, I leaned forward and non-verbally prodded Raymond to finish the sentence. For the money, I guess. In case I needed it for the money. So are you saying you planned to take some money from someone that night? Was that your intent, or was it something else? Take the money, he told me. What were you feeling, Raymond, as you approached the man you shot? Not much, really. Hard to say, but probably not much, he said, which confirmed my own experience when I tried to recreate his. What were you thinking, Raymond, when the man refused to give you any money, when he turned away from you? I wanted some money. That's it? I think so. So you shot him? I stopped him from running. Are you saying the shot was just a warning? That you didn't mean to shoot him? No, I meant it, Raymond said. At the time I meant it, but now I wish I hadn't. His voice trailed off and he looked away from me. I didn't say anything for a minute, wanting the pronouncement Raymond had just offered to soak into his 15-year-old rubber head. His words bounced off the concrete walls inside the consultation room. A moment passed, then ended. He repeated himself, speaking with muted intonations this time. At the time I meant it, but now I wish I hadn't. Raymond and I sat in silence for about 30 seconds, which seemed like such a long time. I chewed my cud. Raymond chewed his cud. I realized a stream of tears was trickling down Raymond's cheeks. My instinct was to look down, but the clinician in me insisted that I focus on his dark pupils so he would talk to me from his heart. I vicariously felt his stomach sink and felt it gurgle. Surely his face felt as warm with discomfort as mine would have. Trying to fathom whatever Raymond felt at that very moment, visceral pains shot through my gut and literally made me feel nauseous. Raymond broke the silence. "Can I ask you something, Dr. Carter?" "Yeah." "What was the man's name?" Good Lord. Weeks after the fact, Raymond is asking for the first time the identity of the man he shot and killed. How long had that matter been bothering him? Or did the thought just now cross his mind? I told Raymond I understand his name is Warren Culpepper. "You know anything about him?" Raymond asked. "No." The tears were now more than Raymond's eyes could hold and tumbled from his face onto the table below. To the degree I could, I again stepped inside this boy's body and soul. His gut churned as if he might develop diarrhea. His cheeks now burned red as his blood pressure was rising. His heart pumped, and it ached. Muscles stiffened, and a repulsive taste likely took root in the pit of his milky mouth. Raymond then started crying. "I really feel sorry for killing that man. I'm really sorry, Dr. Carter." My spirit hurt for this teenage boy, but the finality of his awful act would not let me forget the name of Warren Culpepper. I didn't know this man, and I know nothing about his history, but he was somebody's family member, friend, neighbor, co-worker, or competitor. Whatever good he planned for the future would now go undone. I felt terrible for Raymond. I felt terrible for his victim. And I felt helpless to do anything but try to be an anchor for my young client to momentarily hang on to. Raymond and I are two very different people. He had fallen into confusion and didn't know how to pull out of it. Is Raymond's rank order on the roll of humankind lower than mine? Was he destined to a hard life? And did I rightfully plop onto Easy Street? Will he eventually carry a pitchfork in hell while a kind angel gives me a harp lessons? I don't think so. Through experience, reality is laid naked. Within every person is a craving to deeply know and understand who we are. We want to be convinced that life is rational. We want to make sense of it all. Truth is revealed when we allow ourselves to ask difficult questions, like what difference does the past make? What's right about the way I see things? What's wrong about the way I see things? How would another person interpret what I see? What more is there to know? I'm psychologist Lee Carter. Through this series, I hope you're finding new insights about yourself as we study some of the complexities of the human condition.